Hello and welcome to another Wargame Red Dragon video with me, Bubblebox, and today we're having a look at the Israeli DLC deck build. This is a preview build and there might be some tweaks and changes before release on Tuesday. But I don't think there'll be massive changes because I don't think the French will be working out the weekend, and which really only gives them Monday to change things, which is the day before release. So I don't think there'll be any major changes anymore with this, but there will probably be a balancing patch a couple of weeks after release. That's what they normally do once they've got some data in from gameplay. And there's also another big balancing patch release alongside the Israeli DLC, which will change a lot of units in the game overall. But let's head off and have a look at the Israeli units. The first one I've chosen was an infantry command. The infantry commands now come in a whole variety of transports. I have chosen the one in the Merkava tank. It is expensive to bring in at the start at 180 points, but you do get a tank to use on the front line, and that tank does have a grenade launcher. It's the Merkava 2A tank, 18 front armor. So I've got that. There's a number of other choices. You can bring your infantry in. You could even bring it in this thing called the Azurit, which is let's just get that up real quick. There we go. The Azurit, which has got 3 machine guns and it only costs 15 points. It's well armoured and it's got an okay speed and autonomy. And definitely get that over the Nagmachon. The Nagmachon has worse armour, poor speed and autonomy, so it's probably not only going to get halfway across the map before you have to resupply it. Although it does have 2 machine guns. It's only 5 points less than the Azurit, but the Azurit for me is far superior if you wanted to get that one. And there's a variety of other trucks which you can look at your leisure, including a chopper as well if you want to keep that flexibility in your deck. There's a number of other commands. Now I've also taken an Azurat Picard, which is the Azurit without the machine guns, as a command for 130 points, because probably 3 commands isn't enough, so you need another. You can get 4 in the Azurat Picard. And you could just choose some of these armoured vehicles as your commands without having any infantry commands. That'll give you a good availability, but if you choose an infantry one, you're probably going to need another one to go alongside it, and that's why I've chosen the Azurit Picard without the machine guns. There's also a command tank if you want it, but again, it's a command tank. And is it a command unit or is it a tank? Well, it's a command unit, let's face it, so why not just get the Azurit? You get more of them and they're pretty well armoured. As far as the logistics are concerned, I've got myself a fob, and then I've got this thing, the Oshkosh, which looks a bit like a Hempt, I guess. There's 2 choices, the Oshkosh or the Rio. For me, the Oshkosh is a no-brainer. It carries a lot more fuel, a lot more logistics than the Rio, and even costs less if you work out the amount of logistics you get for the price. You have to micro it left, and it's got a little bit of armour and a strength of 10, no-brainer there. And then I've got the Yasser, should I say, the Yasser Logistics Chopper. You know I like to have a logistics chopper in my deck for a bit of flexibility, and so I've gone for this one. It's the only one available, but it's perfectly adequate for the job. Moving on to the infantry. Now the first thing I went for were manpads, because the AA for Israel isn't great, so we're going to need to bolster it a bit. Manpads will help in doing that. There's 2 manpads. I've gone for the more expensive and, in my opinion, better Barkan. Slightly less availability, I think. Yeah, slightly less availability, but if I pin them together you can see it's very superior to the Bazak, with much better accuracy, HE power of 5, much better suppression. They've only got a strength of 2, which means they're a bit squishy, but I've got a set of them, and I bought them in what did I bring them in? Where's my Barkan thing? I bought them in these Bardellas. The choice for me was between the Bardellas and the Zeldas, which are both kind of infantry or APCs, armed APCs as well. They've got some nice weapons. They only cost 5 points, but the Bardellas is, although it's less armoured than the Zelda, has got amphibious capabilities, which is why I took that one. You can also get them in the old BTR, but why would you? They cost 10 points, or the Anafa helicopter if you want a bit more flexibility to get them around the map. Now they've got some ATGM units. I haven't got any of those, and I'll tell you why when I get to the Recon, because there's an awesome unit in the Recon with a nice long range ATGM launcher, and I've gone for that instead. So, but these are an option if you wanted to take those. In terms of line infantry, I've gone for the Reveillettes. Now the Reveillettes you can get in 2, either as normal Reveillettes or you can get them as Reveillette 90s. and I've gone for the Reveille 90s because of the lore. It's got a much better RPG, although the normal Reveille's probably got slightly better primary and tertiary weapon. The lore for me does the trick with a 16 AP power and a much better accuracy on that weapon, which is why I've gone for those as my basic line infantry to fill out my deck. Now also, these Reveille's come with the Azurit with the 3 machine guns at only 15 points. Again, for me, I've got 2 sets of them, and I bought them I think at Hardened as well, so I vetted them up a little bit, bought them in the Azurits. So the Azurits can act as support, and the Reveille's as my bulk infantry for this deck. I've also got a set of the Reveille's in the Merkava tank. Yes, you can bring your infantry in tanks with the grenade launcher as well, which is going to help them out for sure. Now my final choice here is the Zahamin, and the Zahamin really I got because I wanted some better units, and these are shock troops, the Zahamins, and I got them in Num Nums because I want to be able to say Num Num in the game. And Num Nums are nice and cheap, so I can get my shock infantry out in cheaper trucks, and my not as good, shall we say, line infantry, the Reveille's out in the support. And if I kind of bring them out in a mixture, the Azurits can act as support to both the Reveille's and the Zahamins at the same time. So that's kind of my thinking around this deck. There are some nice commando units in here, the Shahayets, which are the elite units for the Israelis infantry, and I could have got them in the Nimrod, and I'll show you why I didn't get them in the Nimrod when we get to the Recon tab again. But that pretty much is the infantry that I've chosen. They have got militia infantry if you wanted to get spam out a load of militia infantry. No good of course for attacking, but good for kind of defense maybe in certain situations. And then there's the Gavati as well, which are very decent, also shock trained as well if you wanted to get those in. 25 points a bash there as well, come in a variety of units, but they don't come in the armoured infantry fighting vehicles though. So those are my infantry. Support wise, support infantry, Israel, amazing on support. Let's have a look at the artillery first of all, because they've got some really strong artillery pieces. Not going to look too much at the tube artillery here. They're pretty standard, with the same as pretty much all the other decks, but they have got 3 awesome MLRSs. We've got the MAR 240 napalm launcher. We've got the MAR 290 with massive suppressive abilities and an HE power of 15, and the LAR 160 with cluster munitions. But we've also got this thing, which is the first thing I took. It's the MacMac, because I want to try it out. It is kind of, well, yeah, it's a mortar basically with a 9,100 meter range, 6 HE power. Not bothered too much about the dispersion. I'd rather have a little bit more dispersion actually on my mortars than less. A little bit armoured, but looks awesome, and I can't wait to use that. Fairly expensive, 50, but it just looks really powerful, and you get 7 of them as well. I've also taken the MAR 240. Now I was tossing up whether to take this one. I haven't got a lot of room. I think you've only got, on a general deck, you've got 2 slots, because the other slots have got to be for AA. But for this, I've gone for the napalm launcher, because I want to see how this works out in game, the napalm launcher. I was really tempted for the MAR 290, because it does look pretty damn powerful, and this is good for cluster munitions, although we've got lots of tanks and anti-tanks in the Israeli deck, so we should be able to hold ourselves against tanks. But infantry could be more difficult, so a napalm launcher or the MAR 290, very, very useful. Now, insofar as AA is concerned, we're a little bit on the weak side, especially against aircraft. And the only anti-aircraft unit we've really got, which is specialised anti-aircraft, is the old Hawk, called now the Shenav 2, or the Shenav 2. I've gone for the Shenav 2. You've got to get it, really, I think, just to fight off any aircraft. 4,000, unless you want to go really heavy on your anti-air, on your air superiority fighters. So 4,200 meter range, and it's good against choppers as well. The big downside, of course, is it's damn slow. It's got a really bad autonomy, and it's only got 3 missiles. So you're going to have to take a supply truck with it, which is going to add 40 points to the cost straight away. And it's really slow. It's not the best thing in the world, to be honest. And of course, it's very vulnerable to those seed missiles as well. Now, to supplement this, well, not to supplement it, to go alongside with it, I've taken these Macbeths. I've taken these because they have got a Stinger missile, so you can turn off the Vulcan gun and turn it on when you need it. The Vulcan gun's pretty damn good if you can get in range of choppers with it, and it's got a good range against choppers of 2,800 as well. Not so it's pretty good actually against aircraft if you can get it close enough as well. You can also get the Hovet, which is basically just a Vulcan gun, and the terrible BTR. Well, it's not that terrible, but 25 points. I mean, I'd probably go for them at best. They're still 60 points though. They're still pretty expensive. But the other one I've gone for is the Recon, which is pretty much a chaparral. They are fire and forget. It has got a decent range against helicopters. Really an anti-helicopter unit here, and they're only going to shoot at aircraft basically if they're flying right over the top of the damn thing. So that's our AA. Not amazing, but our artillery very good indeed. Moving on to the tanks, this is what we've been waiting for, the Merkava 3D with its ATGMs. Yes, we have a tank for Bluefall now with ATGM missiles with a range of 2,800 meters. Huge front armor, 22, a very good main gun, but pretty expensive at 180 points. I'm sure that used to be 200 as well. They've put that down in price slightly, I think. But yeah, awesome tank. I've also got the Merkava 3B to supplement that because hey, it's got a grenade launcher and a little machine gun as well. Can be pretty useful. Oh, very good front armor. Well, huge front armor again of 21, 155 points, and a very nice stabilizer on that. And then I've gone for a few Merkava 2Bs. I vetted these up to hardened and got 2 sets of them. Just a very nice all-round tank with pretty decent front armor again, but a very nice gun. All for just 80 points. There's the Merkava 1, of course. We're not going to get any of those, but there's these Magachs look pretty decent as well. I was tossing up between getting that and the 80-point Merkava, but overall I think the Merkava just looked a little bit better. But these do look very nice tanks. They look good, and they've got pretty nice stats as well. And then we've got some standard. We've even got the PT-76, the ex-Russian, and a few other standard ones from old Bluefall decks, which look a little bit ropey to me. Moving on though, another strength for Israel is the Recon. They've got some fantastic Recon. Before we go into what I've chosen, have a quick look at this one, the Bedouins. You can get a sniper now with a range of 1,050 meters, and it's also got very good stealth as well as having very good optics, so you can pick off units and remain in hiding with this unit if you're prepared to get it in position and micro it, which I'm probably not prepared to do. So I've gone for the Maglans. The Maglans are our elite trained 10 unit squad Recon, very good Recon. And the first one I've got even comes with its own Recon truck, which also has good Recon. So 2 for 1 in this one. A bog off offer, buy one get one free almost, although it does cost you 15 points actually. But this Maglan has the amazing Spike MR missile, 2,450 meter range, 65% accuracy and 21% AP power. I don't think I need to say anymore. You could use this as a frontline unit. You can use it behind enemy lines. They look pretty awesome. What a lovely unit to have. And I've got a set of those. And then I've got a set of them in the Nimrod helicopter. This Nimrod helicopter, you can only get one set of them, either in the infantry tab, or I'm not sure about the command tab, or in the recon tab. Huge range, 2,975. Very, very powerful missiles on this unit. Only 4 of them, but hugely powerful. If you can find a spot to use them in the game, you're going to just take those tanks out, aren't you? Let's face it. Apart from that, because I've got very tanky anti-tanky deck, I thought we might need a bit of extra recon for our tanks. Good recon tank here. Not an amazing gun, but you're not going to be really using this thing for a gun. You're going to be using it to spot for your other tanks as you're moving forward, and maybe to protect your AA if you're retreating your tanks. But yeah, I got that. You get a lot of them as well. You can kind of spam these things out a little bit. I've got them just at trained as well, 13 of them. And then this one, I was debating whether to get this one because it's quite expensive for what it is. It's got an auto cannon. It has got very good optics though. Again, you get a lot of them. You can put, or a fair amount of them, 7. You can put them around the map. They can shoot at helicopters, which is going to help because we've got very weak AA in this deck. And they will shoot at aircraft if they fly right over the top of them as well. So I got a set of them. That was my kind of one of my last choices though. Vehicles wise, it's all about the ATGMs in the vehicles for the Israelis, and I got pretty much the most powerful units. I've got a set of the Perez. I was debating these a bit, but they are armoured. They can take a little bit of punishment, especially from artillery maybe. If if they notice you've got these things, they're probably going to artillery them. But again, a huge range and very, very powerful gun. Pretty nice unit. To go alongside them, we've got the Hafids, which are a cheaper version of the same thing pretty much, with slightly less accuracy. So I've got a set of them as well, not as well armoured either, but a bit cheaper. And then I've got some hammers with, or hammers, we're called the hammers, which are basically Hummers with Mapats, which are decent missiles, 2,800 metre range and 60% accuracy and an AP power of 22. So some nice ATGM, very nice ATGM units. Moving on to the helicopters. First thing I went for are these Lahatut Mapats. So we've already got that one we saw in the Recon tab. Now we've got some more 2,800 metre range again and good stabilisers on these, so you can fire them on the move. Only a strength of 4, so they're a bit squishy, but they just look pretty decent for 60 points. There is the lesser one with the tow missile, which is only 40 points if you wanted to spend a little bit less, but you get a little bit less, you get quite a lot less stabiliser on that one, and they're not as good a range either, so I'll go for spend 20 points more. Now I was debating whether to get the Zephyr because, sorry, not the Zephyr, the Peton or the Peton, because basically you're just getting another ATGM chopper. I mean, you're unlikely to be using the gun a lot, so it's all about the Hellfire missiles, and I've already got these. So I was debating this, and this is one of the last things I actually put in my deck, but I got it anyway. It looks pretty awesome, and it has got 16 missiles if someone does a tank spam at you with lots of cheap tanks. Then I've got the, lastly I've got the Zephyr, which is basically a Cobra, but it's got Stinger missiles. Again, buffs up our anti-air capabilities just a little bit with those 4 Stinger missiles with a stabilizer and an accuracy of 70%. There's also another Cobra type if you want something more against infantry and light vehicles as well, which has got the Stingers changed for rocket pods, more rocket pods. And that's pretty much it for the helicopters. So moving on to the air tab. Aircraft, they're pretty good actually, pretty nice selection of aircraft. First thing I went for is an air superiority. Did I go for air superiority? The Ram, no. Ooh, have I not got air superiority? Oh yes, sorry, this one, yeah, okay. I've gone for the Meshipar as my main air superiority fighter. It does look pretty powerful with 4 of these Derby missiles with an accuracy and stabilizer of 70%. Now the other one you could have gone for was, if I can find it, let's just put up the air superiority fighters real quick. There we go. Was this one, yeah, the Barak. So if I pin that and show you, so the Barak is pretty much just the same as the Meshipur, but with less armament. So it's got 2 missiles in each of the slots instead of 4. So if you wanted to go for something a little bit cheaper, you could get this instead. They've both got, in fact, the Barak has slightly better ECM, I just noticed, 50% than the Meshipur. I'll stick to the Meshipur though. I think it's got more missiles. I'll stick for that for my main anti-air fighter. Now we've got some nice bombers and stuff in this deck as well. I've gone for the Lavi because I want to try it out. I don't know how successful it's going to be in the game. It's got 10 500 kilogram bombs, and it's classed as a multi-role fighter, but in reality it's just going to be used as a bomber, let's face it. It looks a bit weird as well, being a multi-role fighter with huge bombs underneath it, but we're going to be using that as a bomber. And then I've got another bomber, the Ram, with the Griffin Fire and Forgets. Looks pretty powerful, HE power of 10, 4 missiles. Hopefully we can drop that on top of any armoured vehicles and do away with them in game. It's also got 4 AIM 95 missiles that it can use against aircraft as well, with a stabilizer of 55%. So that doesn't look too bad as well. There are some seed aircraft in this deck. I haven't put any in because I'm going to be I'm not going to be using my aircraft, I don't think, too much, but there are a couple of nice seed aircraft if you wanted them, and the aircraft I am going to be using are going to be more for defensive purposes than offensive purposes for this particular deck, I think. But that is my Israeli deck. I will be tweaking it, I will be changing it probably a great deal after I've played a few games, But if you did like this video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think about the units I've chosen. If you think I should choose some different ones, what you're gonna choose, etc. in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I'll be putting some gameplay up real soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.